Hello and welcome back, or welcome to my channel if you are new here. Today we're going to be talking about the Chaos Dwarfs. So I'm just going to do some unit comparison information things. So a guy called Inept General used to cover this kind of content, so I never did in the past. Kind of like a respect thing. So if you are out there, General, I hope you're alright. I've not seen you do anything for a while. So this is basically comparing Thorgrim Drudgebearer to the Legendary Lord that we're going to get with the Chaos Dwarfs that's been showcased so far. So as you can see, their stats aren't incredibly different. I mean, they are to a certain extent. But also, you've got to take into consideration, like, this guy is really fast, this new Chaos Legendary Lord. Charge bonus of 60 versus 20, and speed of 30 versus 60. Melee attack is also kind of lower. So we don't know the level of this character is the only thing, or the items equipped to him because of the way it was shot. But overall, like, his melee defense seems to be a little less. But he has pretty much better stats for everything else, which is pretty goddamn good. It's going to be really hard to know exactly what to compare these guys to because they're going to be a mixture of dwarfs, orcs, and wizards. But like, where's the Rune Lord for comparison's sake? So if we look at the Rune Lord stats, okay, so they're kind of similar, but even less melee defense. But this guy's not a legendary lord. I guess Thorgrim would be the best, wouldn't he? Where is he? No, we were just looking at Thorgrim. I mean, Thorek. God, they have such similar dwarf names. Okay, because this guy's a Rune Lord, which is kind of dwarf magic. So you've got very similar armor, the same leadership, speed is half, melee attack is much less, melee defense is a little bit less, weapon strength is a little bit less, and charge bonus obviously is mega less. So it seems like the Lords, from a legendary perspective, at least on release, will outpace the normal Dwarf Lords. So we've got a couple of other units, so let's compare them to their nearest counterparts too. Okay, so the Chaos Dwarf Blunderbusses are kind of the equivalent of Thunderers, so let's compare these two units. So it's going to be the same model count, it's pretty much the same armor, leadership's kind of in the same ballpark, speed actually is as well, because they don't have crazy mechanical legs. However, the melee attack, from this screenshot at least, is buffed so that the melee defense and the melee attack is higher, but that could just be skill points. It's a little hard to tell, like I said before. So weapon strength is slightly higher than normal dwarves, 28 versus 34. But yeah, it's kind of close, right? Isn't it? And there's a little bit more ammo because, well, it's chaos. And that doesn't seem to be buffed at all. Ammunition is actually degraded at 25. I'm not sure why that is. So that still is pretty close. But so they've got a little bit more damage. Well, they've got quite a bit more damage there, but they've got a lot less range. So we got 90 versus 145. So that's going to be quite a significant impact if you're going to have to close that distance more to actually fire more. But I suspect the Chaos Dwarfs are all going to have some healthy missile resistance because they are Chaos Dwarfs and wearing Chaos Dwarf armor, which technically should be better than Dwarven armor. Like an extra 5 doesn't seem to do much. This symbol seems to have changed a little bit. Not really sure, but they're armor piercing, decent melee combatants, obviously, as most dwarfs are. So that's going to be on par, so we can probably expect them to be the same as Thunder as it cost. Okay, let's have a look at another unit. So the Bull Center renders kind of don't have a comparison in the Dwarf rosters, so I'm looking at Slaanesh because I'm feeling like they've got a kind of Fiends vibe to them. And their armor's in pretty much the same ballpark. Leadership, not really. The Bull Centers are much more, but it's obviously buffed from the look of that. And but their speed is kind of 60 versus 90, which is not too bad. But the melee defense, sorry, the melee attack is kind of close. But the melee defense is obviously better because demons don't really have a whole lot in the way of defense. I'm not really sure if this is the best comparison, but a lot of these monstrous units, like they're lapping something. This seems like a lot more well-rounded monstrous infantry unit because it's got really good melee defense, it's got decent melee attack. Speed is probably its weakness, right? If you're going for anything, but then again, they've got armor and melee defense. Their charge bonus is pretty good, which puts them on par with Slanesh. So this will be a really good cavalry unit for all intensive purposes, smashing through units. The speed's going to be your only issue, but they've got a tool for everything in the Chaos Dwarfs, so I don't really think that's going to hinder them all that much. It's probably going to be more expensive than Fiends are, so these are probably going to be priced on the battlefield, which is probably fair because they're quite expensive in stats wise. Like, if you have no weakness, then obviously the cost is the weakness of the unit. Being not cost effective is pretty punishing. Alright, let's look at the next one. So the Hobgoblins are probably going to be the closest, I think, to the Nasty Skulkers, realistically speaking. So you're going to have close on the armor, they're going to be slightly better armored, but then again, like anyone working for the Chaos Dwarfs should have access to better armor. Anyway, their leadership is exactly the same. The speed is pretty on par. 26, 18. So melee offense and melee attack are better quite significantly. So that is pretty good. Weapon strength is, also kind of on par, but a little bit better. So they have charge bonus. They have a little bit of ammo, though, is the thing with these guys. So they're kind of hybrid unit. And they do have the Stalk Vanguard. So it's kind of a cross between the Nasty Skulker and the little units that the Ogrins get. I forget what they're called now. But yeah, it's kind of a hybrid Stalk ambush unit, which is pretty good. I can't wait till we get the full Goblin roster, to be honest with you. The Hobgoblin faction should be pretty solid. This will be a nice sneaky unit for you to get into artillery and stuff, so you don't have to actually get fast units if you don't really want to. You can always have these guys sneak around the back. They are anti-infantry, so they'll be good against infantry component artillery pieces. They've got Vanguard, Stalk, and they've got a missile as well. That's pretty reasonable. Like, the range of 70 is not great, but 20 damage with poison is pretty great for a preemptive charge. I have no idea how they actually work, though. We won't know more until we actually get the DLCs. Okay, so then you're going to have your Goblin Labourers, which are basically your Goblin Chaff unit. So the slight difference that they've gone with here, which kind of surprises me, is they have no armor, comparatively. Absolutely none. So these probably are going to be quite cheap. Like, I'm thinking really, really cheap, because Goblin units are cheap anyway. But if you take away their armor, then they're going to take a heck of a lot of damage. As you can see here from this screenshot as well, like they'd lost half their life at this point. So they've got no armor. Leadership is a bit less, but they're indentured laborers, so they're not going to be the happiest people. Speed's exactly the same. 20, 26. So the melee attack, melee defense is less as well. And then strength is less, and charge bonus is less. So actually, Goblin Spearmen are actually better than Goblin Laborers, which is kind of questionable. But as you can see, the upkeep value on these guys is like next to nothing. So I imagine you're going to see a lot of these guys, which would mean that where you're positioned going up against the Ogres would probably be pretty good, because these are a spear units, so that's anti-large, so that's going to give you a nice early game advantage against the Ogre faction. So next we have Orc Labourers, which again are kind of similar to Orcs. So you're going to have a good health pool, not that you can tell there, right? And that's 140 men, which I believe is the size of the Orc unit. Oh no, theirs is 120, so there's slightly more of them. But their actual armor is 0 again, because like they don't care. These guys are totally expendable. These are meat shield units, unlike regular Orcs. And they don't have shields either, so that's another grimace for these guys. So these guys could really fill the bulk of the forces. Orc and Goblins being the main chaff units that will be spammed out in the early game to help rapid expansion is definitely probably going to be the way to go with these guys. Leadership, we can't really tell from the screenshot because it took it a terrible time, it seems. But speed is about on par. Weapon strength is slightly below. Defense is half what it should be. And weapon strength is, -10 on that one. Charge is only -2 to what it is there. So You know, they're reduced, but I imagine the cost of these units again is going to be ridiculously cheap. It was only 37 for the goblins, so for these guys it's probably going to be like 50, 60 maybe. So you're going to have lots of these guys in the early game. It's going to be a pretty solid start, I think. Okay, so the dwarf warriors with great weapons for the chaos dwarfs should come in pretty similar to normal dwarfs. They should have better armor, but I'm thinking that basically what they've done is they've given them missile resistance instead of spell resistance, which is what I think this symbol here represents. So they've got the same armor, it's the same unit size, it's the same health pool. They've got contempt, which I'm guessing is going to be a buff versus other dwarfs because they're kind of spiteful that they were abandoned, which is a subject for debate. Leadership is buffed on this screen here, so that's kind of close to what it is. But the speed, melee attack, melee defense, speed's the same. Melee attack, melee defense is actually slightly higher on this, but that could actually be from the character pool. Although the text is grey, so it's not. That should be exactly how these guys are. Weapon strength of 36 is higher, so these are slightly stronger than normal dwarfs, but pretty much the same in every way, which is pretty much how it should be, right? Okay, dwarf warriors without. So the dwarf warriors compared to the chaos dwarf warriors, again, same life, same unit. I do apologise, I was going to cough there, so I had to quickly pause. The leadership's going to be about on par, as you can see it's buffed on this side. Speed, weapon, attack, defense, and strength is slightly higher for the dwarfs. Overall, it would seem. Again, no spell resistance, but they've probably got missile resistance, which it would seem be the situation. So in a dwarf versus dwarf conflict, it seems like the chaos dwarfs have a definite advantage from these stats, which is going to be interesting. So I'm guessing though, because like none of these guys I've shown you have got the cost of the chaos dwarfs, I'm guessing that these guys are going to be quite a bit more expensive because of that simple fact. If you got missile resistance on top of slightly better stats, you've got to be more expensive, right? It just has to be. That's the way it pans out, which is very interesting. So I've got Wolf Riders versus Wolf Riders. So you can see there, again, it is pretty similar. Same health pool, same characteristic buffs, exactly same abilities. So these are pretty much, you know, number for number the same. I don't know about the leadership because when the screenshot was taken, but 25 armor, speed of 92, the same. 22, 22, 24, 22, 22, 24. So that's exactly the same as these are exactly the same unit. I imagine they'll actually cost slightly less because they're going to slightly less. They're going to try and balance out the goblins versus chaos dwarfs to try and make you take a good mix of stuff. But it'll be worth throwing a couple of these in your army just to have to threaten the flanks of the enemy at any rate. And that seems like a solid choice. They've got the good thing the chaos dwarfs have is they seem to have a tool for every single job. It's just going to really come up to how expensive their armies are versus how easy it is to build their economy, which is going to make them very interesting to play as a faction, I think. Okay, so this one's a little tough because we don't really have something to compare against a Centaur hero because they're half cav, half hero, and normally you have to choose to put something on a mount. So I'm going to compare him to the Gobble because that is probably the easiest comparatively, right? In this situation, I mean they have some pretty decent skills. They have contempt, which I'm guessing is contempt for the normal dwarfs, and missile resistance, fire resistance that we've seen on the other character traits. So they've got siege attacker, which kind of I guess makes sense. The cause fear, they got encourage, still encourage guys nearby. Wound, which is a horrible mechanic, which I hoped we'd see a patch to, but not as yet. So in comparison to a Gobble, they've got less armor than a Gobble has, but leadership is, I don't know why I keep skipping leadership. Leadership is effectively the same. Speed is effectively the same. You're in with like 5 points difference there. So the melee attack is in the 30s for the Gobble, so it's in the 30s for the character as well. The weapon strength is almost the same, and the charge bonus is actually almost the same. So in terms of actually power and combat, this is probably going to be very similar to a Gorbel. And yeah, so that's going to be pretty interesting. That's a good mix of units that the Chaos Dwarfs have, which is like, it doesn't leave any gaps, right? They've got Cav, they've got Flyers, they've got Fast Cav, Heavy Cav, they've got War Machines, they've got technically robot monster demon things. You've got heroes, you've got magic, you've got chaff, you've got elite infantry, they've got the blunderbusses. There's probably going to be some like cheap archer units as well, I would imagine, for them. So yeah, it's a good range of almost everything. So to me, the Chaos Dwarfs are going to be a solid all-around faction, but the cost of their armies is going to be the issue. So like, getting the good units is going to be mega expensive, I imagine. So they're going to have to be super hyper aggressive to get the income to be able to afford those forces, else it's probably just not going to work. All right, so that's my thoughts on the Chaos Dwarfs. Video style stolen from Inept General. If you are out there, Inept General, and you do see this video, buddy, I hope you're okay. And if you do have any thoughts, comments about the Chaos Dwarfs, let me know if you want me to cover the Chaos Dwarfs, because I'm on the fence on covering them on release. I wasn't going to, but I've kind of hyped it up myself now, I think. So yeah, I'm interested in doing that as content. So yeah, let's have a conversation, post something in the topics, and we'll take it from there. I wish you good fortune in all your wars to come, and I'll see you in the next one.